And every single day of those 5 years, that person is wondering if today is the day. And when you know what, it becomes inhuman, it becomes degrading, even though I committed that crime. Okay, and I'm like living my life or whatever, but it is not right. I think, yeah. I think that's a strong constituency that people who feel like that. I've never understood advocates, the argument or the perfect solution of rehabilitation against retribution. If you've committed the crime, why are they feeling sorry for you? Why do they move with this rehabilitation or retribution thing? It's because everyone makes mistakes. Everyone, you can't rape everyone. Has no moral compass.
I'm saying
That's why you'll see, even when you're in court, they will say, mitigating factors. Like, what is mitigating against what you're saying? You're not, okay, I did something terrible. But you know, not true. When you say there's no one watching it, I don't know, go come with you.
but what are a parent? No, I understand that.
The court has got space for clemency. Okay, so let's know that, yes.
The law does not moralize, but the law has space for clemency. I think we need mercy and clemency somehow, somewhere within our laws. So, anyway, moving on. I know we're already getting into the... Look, I'm not taking a side here. I'm just stating my polarized constituencies, which we said exist, okay? So, right now, or at least as at the time that the death penalty was abolished, okay, in Zimbabwe, we had 62 inmates who were on death row. And people ask, what is going to happen to those people? What is going to happen to them is they have to go back to the High Court and get a review of their sentences. In terms of how much they had served, perhaps, I don't know if they're going to look at behavior. I don't know if they're going to look at, the type of crime it is, or how old they are, or whatever, or how long they have served, actually, being under death row. Then they might put them on life imprisonment, okay, from death row to life imprisonment. They might even give them a completely different sentence and say maybe 2 years, and then you're out, or whatever the case may be. So the High Court has to sit down and look in detail. It will depend on a lot of factors that the High Court has to look at. Okay, and just think about it. While we're there, a lot of our war heroes. Okay, I'm not going to mention names, but some of them still alive today were on death row in the previous regime, right? In the colonial regime, they were on death row, and somehow, with the coming of independence, they were removed from death row, right? So, again, another interesting factor where you look treason, okay? So people who've committed treason, are most likely to go on death row, all right? Because they are committing crimes against the state, committing crimes against maybe the leader of the nation, committing crimes against the whole nation, maybe it's people who are creating nuclear bombs, and they're threatening, whatever the case may be, whatever treasonous act they have performed, okay, that one can qualify you for a death penalty. But look at it this way, Miss Erica, I like your mind because you think like that. I always give this example, which my English teacher gave when I was doing A-level English, She gave me 3 words. She says, can you tell me the difference between these 3 words? She said, freedom fighter. She wrote it down on the green board. Then she said, terrorist. And then she said, guerrilla. She says, what's the difference between those 3 words? Yeah, I was like, going crazy. And she said, you know what? Nothing. You can be talking about exactly the same person. It just depends on who is speaking. Okay, so you'll understand that the soldiers under the Zanla and the Zipra forces. Okay, those ones kunana gogo ari kwagutu kana kuri kunzi pane wana pfurwa. You understand now? One freedom fighter.
It's the same thing as there's no difference between a villain and a hero. It just depends on
Exactly.
who's
It just
speaking.
depends on who's speaking and who's looking. What are the circumstances? Okay, and then if it's like some independent newspaper from some independent country from Switzerland, they'll say it was a guerrilla was killed. They're not saying they like him or they don't like him. They're just describing the guerrilla warfare that he does. But then you think of the people now who are fighting against these people. They'll be like, it was a terrorist. You understand? And you're talking about this. So when you're talking of death penalty, which is why I mentioned Kuti, some of our war heroes, actually during the previous regime, they were called terrorists. They were put on. Thank God, independence came before they were executed. They couldn't.
Well, in line with this, as I was researching on this, Zimbabwe, we last executed in 2005. That was when the last execution happened. Now, does this mean that the consideration of this abomination was already underway? It just so happened that, yakazotaurwa parliament.
Yeah.
Or, what is the reason that we last executed in 2005? It should mean that maybe we were
following. It was
following
20 years ago.
a
So there was
trend.
like a moratorium. Okay, yakapiwa, like a moratorium which was given, meaning there was like a space which was given within which no death penalty would be executed. So people could be given a death penalty, but there would be no executions. Okay? It was a moratorium. I'm sure it was a conversation that was going on. And you will understand, just like when we were discussing the issue of the expansion of the rights on abortion. Okay, again, very polarized. Okay, very emotive, but as well as this one, it was always a very big conversation. It's a move that is coming right from the United Nations, and a lot of countries, or most countries who are pushing towards just complying with the international standards.
My global trends. Yeah.
Yes. And so obviously, as I've always said, Zimbabwe is always trying to push up.
Would then be for us to ask, now that the capital punishment is now out, does this mean that the government is now pushing more for rehabilitation, like I said, against retribution? Because that may be the only answer. But if that then is the only answer, what are we doing to forge down on the crime, the density of it? Because now, what's the government going to do in that place? Because without the capital punishment, we are at risk of violent crime as a nation. Okay, so that may or may not be a fact. Okay, when people commit crimes, they're not looking at whether there's capital punishment or there's no capital punishment. Let's look at crimes of passion. Okay. When I started working as a lawyer, I remember taking over a case. We had this gentleman, and we committed a crime of passion. He had killed, he put his wife red-handed with another man, and he killed Batman. He didn't kill his wife, he killed Batman. And that's why I said, Samu, yeah? Samu. Yes. And so I'm kind of... And I took the Amora, right? And it was pretty heinous. That was a crime of passion. And so I got in Nigeria. And I think he had already served. By the time I was, begging for clemency, I think he had served about 15 years, or maybe 45 years.
Or something of the sort. Or 20 years, actually. It served about 20 years. And I was writing to say, look, this was a crime of passion. This is a what. This is a what.
The law is not it's not as straightforward as sometimes we like to look at it. Rehabilitation definitely is occurring every day, and I can bear testimony to that. Okay, a lot of rehabilitation. I do a lot of prison visits, not as a lawyer, but as a Christian, and I go there, yes, and we like to bring them things and engage with them. They're human beings, okay. And what you see is You know, the one time we visited, it was really beautiful. You know, we went to one of the prisons and what, you know, for each and every one of us who came, Tataka Rwanda, you know, they gave us Magapura and mango tree, Magapura and Granadilla tree like you know, yes. It was amazing. And, you know, I took that mango tree and I'm like, I'm going to plant this. This is hope. This is the future. You know what I mean? They are being allowed to do, you know, to live and to expand and to sort of like imagine what they do when they come out. So the rehabilitation people come around and they'll come to you and say,
that's just amazing. So you know what? If you give a human face to prisoners, you look at the whole situation completely differently, you know. And if you start to see them as people who are probably regretting terribly what they did, okay, and who would give anything to walk free, to be part of the free world, you know, you will see things a bit differently. And maybe if you also engage with them a lot, you'll then say, the way that sometimes we're looking at these things, it's not really quite that. So retribution, iripo, anditika, but rehabilitation again, iripo. Okay, retribution yachona ndo kutopinda mjere kwachona. Deterrence yagara itoriko, because I'm sure Miss Erica, you know, and Miss Lewe, kuti chachinzi unofira mjere shamari. How many times have you heard that? Unofira mjere. People don't know kuti kune death penalty, kune life imprisonment, they don't know all those fancy things avazvizive. Angozoti iwo unofira mjere, you know. And kana achitotya ndosha anenge achitotya. But people are pushed to do what they do. We don't know by what, you know, and sometimes, yes, it's passion, sometimes it's planned, sometimes it's whatever, but the courts are very well equipped to deal with each and every one of those cases. And that's why I say, like, when to by death penalty, there's a reason you're guys by death penalty. And so you
and yes, I think it was a conversation that was being held, and the pressure groups definitely were doing their job, but I think it just came to a point where it was now time to say, look, I think I did see from you know, the articles from the European Union, there was also the Amnesty International commenting on how they were commending the Zimbabwean government for putting up this because it's toward the human rights and whilst we're saying that, I still don't think we are answered from you from the point, below point, what then is put in place. Maybe as a direct measurement or as an equivalent of death penalty to deter, because that is the strongest argument that comes against this, to say, okay, fine, we're moving with the human rights global trend, fine, everyone deserves the right to be heard and rehabilitation, whatever. Because those are the people that we are scared of. And you're very right, because the families out there, in as much as we're looking at a criminal, calling somebody criminal, it's heavy. But as when we're looking at a convict, let's call them a convict. When we're looking at a convict and looking at them as a human being and trying to protect their human rights, etc., even as a convict, we're also looking at the families who want justice for the victim. Because imagine, you must come to court, honestly. Probably stay there.
I'm not coming to court.
No, do. I mean, everybody have a chance out there. Just have a chance to go farm and to court. The court is, there's a public gallery. You can sit there and just listen. Okay. Okay, look.
So you can understand that, but when I was very good hour, life for a life, tooth for a tooth, eye for an eye, that type of thing. And I totally understand that, because sometimes people you know. And if a person, suffer death, but justice does not necessarily mean kuti munhu asuffer death row kana tapiwa death penalty. Justice can be asungwa, kuti asungwa akaitwa munhu kuendeswa kujera kwaendeswa ikoko kuprison. That imprisonment, right, inonzi in with labor, is usually way enough retribution for work they will have done. But and just your knowledge of knowing kuti munhu uyo is no longer roaming the streets, you know. I'll give you another example, you know. I was driving along Mashinga Road and there's a drunken driver who just cut me. Midway, you know, and ndakati masaramusi muroad kuti ndiskepe kusamudhuma. He just cut me and achibva ndati yotona traffic kabisa. And then only to notice kuti munhu anga akatodhakwa zvake, you know. You know, ndakati hasha. Ndakati yoti ndakamuteerera munhu waya. Akandopaka ndakamira ndakati muda kunditisa ngozi mimi. You know, ndandava nemota. And beyond that, you know what I did? I was like, it was like, get away. And it's like, but you know, this is how much I wanted justice, Miss Erica, just so you can get a picture of it. And I know my police right handy, put on what hand. And I can my police right, and then I had to right hand to get a breathalyzer. You know, we drove, I don't know how many kilometers to the machine, your breathalyzer. And then my journey had stopped, and I said, I wanted my justice, you know. But a breathalyzer, everything happened. And I realized that I'm going to be chasing up with you every month. To know that I stop happy. You get what I mean? Hakuna. And it was only after that, knowing kuti, when I got my license, I felt safe for other people. You know, it wasn't just justice for me. It was kuti munhu akarambatswa kuti ashaurava nemurodzi. But because I kuti aiwamba ndingodzokera futi umbondoita my license kuti ngodza to drunk and driving, you know whatever. It made the streets safe for people. It's not justice for all. Yes, but pretty much. And so people want justice, and I understand that. But justice does not necessarily mean the death penalty, you know. Kuti munhu ngaatwenda. Kuti ungati munhu atorwa 10 years out of his or her life. Myself, I have no idea what that means. It's a huge thing. Imagine how many things have happened in the last 10 years. My apps are similar in the last 10 years. The currency that has changed. The opportunities, you know, maybe cut off point, 35 years, 37 years, you know, it's not happening. So, very people pray for blood, right? Blood does not only come by somebody being placed on the death penalty. It doesn't. Just the punishment yakutopiwa na mutongi, yakutopiwa na magistrate when a judge. I promise you, even just a year in prison, you know, I don't think people understand. It's like, zvakatokwena kuti nezvombodzikisa pfungwa kudzamisa pfungwa kuti ndikubata neshame upenyu hwangu panapa, what is going on. And if that person usually comes out, munhu ayawo kutoti anogona kutoita something chine musoro muupenyu because anenge anatsokufunga kuti yo, you know. Just for clarity on this conversation in particular, I think you did touch on it earlier. The 60 prisoners that are already on death penalty, you did say that they will be then getting retried. Reviewed. Their sentences will be reviewed. Because then let me just clarify, their convictions stay. Okay, so it's not like we are revisiting to what the convictions stay. No, the convictions stay. They're not being retried. So my criminal law, we look at the conviction, are you guilty or not guilty? So once you are guilty, as one's a community service, that's the sentence. Once you are guilty, one's a fine, that's a sentence. Once you are guilty, one's 3 years imprisonment, all of it suspended or half of it suspended, that's the sentence. But the sentence, the conviction stays. They're not retrying any cases, but they're going to be reviewing the sentences. Because remember, the death penalty was a sentence, which followed after a conviction of guilty. So I hope that is answered, that Kobawa is answered because it was coming up a lot. With death penalty. We do have 6 minutes, so we can maybe take questions. Yes, absolutely. I think that we've got 29 countries that retain the death penalties in their legal systems right now in Africa. Do you think that this decision that's been made by Zimbabwe is going to maybe influence other countries to follow suit as well. Never mind the global trends and the petitions by the Amnesty International to do the same thing. Yes, absolutely. And then say peer pressure. Absolutely. But what I notice is that I don't think there are countries that are waiting to see what other countries are doing, before they actually deal with their own alignment with international laws. What I think is there's just a general move, okay, and there's also pressure coming from the United Nations, on the issue of human rights, okay, that is bearing a lot on all the countries, not just in Africa, but in the U.S., not all the states have abolished the death penalty, okay, you still have a few states that are still holding on to the death penalty, and perhaps what I can say is Africa has been commended as the continent which has the fastest uptake on the abolition of the death penalty. Basically, in the last 10 years, in the last decade, 7 countries have abolished. Okay, they've done for the abolition of the death penalty. And so you can see the trend that's already going on there. I don't think that it's people who put on, peer pressure or anything like that. I think there is pressure bearing down, and I think everybody also wants to align themselves. Because there are also positives that come when you align yourself with international standards. But I'm going to ask this one is from the top of my head. Yes, I just want to hear from you. What role do you think our colonial history had to play in the death penalty? Of course, the causes for it back then, let's put it at an ample 80, 90 years ago, it was not really about crime. However, it was of diverse immoral reasons that it was done. So what do you think, or do you think it played a role entirely in our death penalty measures? Because they're different to the other 31 countries that had it in Africa. I just want to be corrected from the statistics. Those are the statistics. So, what, and I haven't checked to see when exactly the death penalty as a sentence was promulgated into law, okay? But I know that it became very exciting during Rehabilitation. Yeah, you saw, which is where I specifically mentioned treason. Okay, it's a way that regimes control politics. So and this is in various countries, and these are going way back into history, right? But
Yes,
like
I
I
said.
said, we inherited the death penalty from the colonial era. We inherited it, and we inherited so many things. We inherited a lot of things, and over the years, we've had time to review, and say, okay, are we still aligned to this? Do we really actually run this? Or is it actually still relevant to us? And I think that's where we are. You'll notice, is it abortion? Is it this? There's so many changes that are happening because people are also being made aware of the law, and people are reviewing. I think we're the right way. We're a sovereign nation. We can look at ourselves and say, we should know. Cultural influences as well. Exactly. Precisely. And it's not to kind of make a lawyer doing our customs to say, look, is this really going along in tandem with who we are and where we want to go as a country? And we're free to do that. Advocate, I think maybe I'll put it at a number 7 people have asked if you could maybe lead from this to corporal punishment. I think it's a way to talk about corporal punishment. But definitely that's over to you, as you can speak to the magnitude of that, not me. So if you can, I think I would appreciate it. But because we are fast running out of time, how do we catch up with you in between now and next week Monday? Absolutely. 0771 111 099. That's my hotline. 0771 111 099. And Advocate Nyadima across all social media handles. I will carry on with the conversation. This is me hoping that we are answered. We stand a little firmer with the grounds of the abolition of the death penalty, and we did ask maybe we could touch on corporal punishment with the weeks that are coming. But thank you so much for joining us this morning. Absolute pleasure. Speaking there to Advocate Nyadima Posa, and I do hope that you did take some nuggets out of that one there. That's taken us to the top of the hour. It's 11 o'clock on Star FM, and it's time for the news.